Good morning, my dear students, and welcome to the week 8 of our discussion in ethics class. So for this week, we are going to talk about feelings and emotions and their connections with our moral decisions. So for our objective for this week, you are expected to differentiate emotions from feelings. You are also expected to understand the contribution and non-contribution to moral decisions of our emotions and feelings. And of course, to understand the ethics of love. So, for our first objective for this week, which is to differentiate emotions from feelings, it is important that we understand first the concept of emotion before we tackle what are the differences between emotions and feelings. So, what is emotion? Emotion is basically our distinctive feelings distinguished from our reasoning or knowledge. In short, or in other words, emotions are our unconscious, impulsive reaction, no, from our outside environment. Ibig sabihin, what is happening around us perceived by our brain or perceived by our different senses triggers an emotional response within us. Hence, we are experiencing emotions as a result of what is our experiences in our environment. According to Lisa Feldman, who is a neuroscientist, a psychologist, and an author, emotions are the on-the-spot meaning the brain gives to this external and internal sensory input. Just like what I've said, our brain always try to sense or locate what is happening around us through the use of our different senses. Those are the sense of touch, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, the sense of sight, and the sense of hearing. Now, when these when these senses captured different impulses from our environment, it sends a message to our brain which interprets what is happening around us. And when the brain interprets what is happening around us, it will send the message to our amygdala, which trigger an emotional response within our body. Okay? Therefore, emotion is our reaction basically on what is happening around us. Okay? So what are the 6 emotions that human beings experience? First, we have the happiness. Second, the sadness. The third one is the emotional state of fear. The fourth one is the emotional state of disgust. The fifth one is the emotional state of anger. And the sixth one is the emotional state of surprises. So we experience this kind of emotion depends on what particular situation we are experiencing. Therefore, emotions is our reaction on what situation or what on the spot meaning our brains interpret based on our environment. Now, there are different factors that triggers our emotion. Meaning, there are different ways wherein people experience when in accordance with their emotion. The first one is what we call the sensory input. Just like what I'm saying, our brain tries to locate what is happening around us through the use of our sensory input. So those are the sense of touch, sense of sight, sense of smell, sense of taste, and the sense of hearing. Another factor that construct our emotional experiences is our goal, our desire as a human being. And the third one is our prediction. Basically, what we are expecting or what we are looking in the near future. So, our emotions triggers when first our sensory our sense of touch, sight, smell, hearing, and smell, no, capture different impulses. For example, if you are walking along the street and you heard a loud noise from a shot of a gun, that sound will be captured by the sense of your hearing and will send a message to your brain, which your brain will interpret and instruct your amygdala to secrete an emotional hormone that will put you in a certain emotional state. So in that case, if you heard a loud noise from a shot of a gun, from a gunshot rather, you will be in an emotional state of fear. Because you don't know where the sound is coming from. You just heard that there is a loud gunshot noise. Okay. Another example would be if you are again walking along the street and your sense of sight captured a pile of garbage, and your sense of smell captured a foul smell coming from that rotting pile of garbage. It will send a message to your brain, which will your brain interpret and triggers your amygdala to put you in an emotional state of disgust. And that is how our sensory input affects our emotional state. The second one is our goal. Basically, how we thrive as a human being. So there are different goals or drive that we do as human being. The first one is the survival drive, basically for our physiological needs, for our survival. Okay, as a human being. The second is the legacy drive, basically about our accomplishments in life, our reputation, and our status as a human being. The third one is the leisure drive, basically for satisfying our gratification. And the fourth one is sexual and familial drives, which is all about making a family and all about parenting. So, when a human being is on a certain goal and that goal is about to be accomplished by an individual, hence it will put the man or the human being in a certain emotional state such as happiness. Or, for example, if you are in your survival drive and you are looking for your physical needs, which is, for example, food. And when we are longing for food, it means we are hungry, right? Now, try to imagine yourself that you are hungry, then you went to the kitchen and to find out that there's no food to eat. If there's no food to eat, therefore you will be put into an emotional state of being anger because your goal to eat was not satisfied. Okay? And that is how our goal as a human being affects our emotional state. The third one is prediction. Basically, what are we expecting from the near future? So there are instances wherein when we expect something in the near future which is favorable to us and it happened, it will trigger an emotional experience to us which we call happiness. But for example, if we are to predict something in the future which is not favorable to us and it happened, it will put us into a emotional state of what we call as sadness. Okay? Now, what if we don't expect something in the future? Then we are all of a sudden experience those unexpected situation. We will be into an emotional state of surprise. Okay? So what do we need to understand in emotions? Emotion is basically the reaction of our brain on what is happening around us. And these are the things that affects no, our emotional experiences. The first one is the sensory input. The second one is our goal as human being. And the third one is our prediction. Now, if it happens that we are now in a certain emotional state, we will have or we will encounter what we call as emotional experiences. And what is emotional experiences? Emotional experiences is basically what we experience when we are in certain emotional state. Okay, for example, if you are in an emotional state of happiness, you will have your own or its unique emotional experiences. So, what are those? First one is what we call subjective experiences. When we are in a specific emotional state, it will trigger a subjective experience for us. Basically, it will interpret or we will contextualize what is happening to us and what appropriate emotional state shall be triggered by our amygdala. Amygdala, no, what I'm talking about is a part of the brain that is responsible for our emotion. Now, going back to happiness as an emotional state, after experiencing subjective experiences, the emotional state of happiness will have a physiological response. So what are the physiological response of being happy? Sometimes if you are too happy, you will have the tears of joy. You will basically have tears in your eyes. You will have like butterflies in your stomach. Have you experienced having some butterflies in your stomach? That's an idiomatic expression of crumbling inside your stomach. Or basically you will smile when you are happy. And those are physiological response. Those are the automatic response of our body when we are on certain emotional state. How about behavioral response? Behavioral response is basically our attitude and action. So when we are in a certain emotional state, it will trigger a behavioral response within us. And going back to being happy, what are the behavioral response of being happy? So the behavioral response of being happy is having like a good mood, a very positive attitude, so on and so forth. So each and every emotions, no, yung mga emotions natin like happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, and surprise has its own emotional experiences. So for example, if you are experiencing the emotional state of fear, just like what we are seeing in our presentation, the first one is the subjective experience, which is all about contextualizing what is going to happen or what is happening and what specific emotional experience shall be triggered by our amygdala. Then after that, it will have a physiological response. So as you can see in our presentation, here are the different physical effects of fear. There is a faster heartbeat, a faster breathing, the foot movement slows down or slowing down of our bowel movement, and so on and so forth. The third one is the behavioral response. And what is the behavioral response of fear? Basically, being too much alert, being wary of your surroundings, or some is, parang aloof, no, sa ibang tao. And that is the behavioral response, or that is the emotional experience that we experience when we are in certain emotional state. Okay, so what is the implication of understanding this emotional experience? So it basically tells us that emotion is not just in our mind. Emotions are real, and emotions affects us as human being. Okay? And emotions, although it is uncontrollable, it is manageable. What do I mean by uncontrollable and manageable? We cannot specifically or 100% control our emotions because emotions and its emotional experiences are natural responses of our mind and body, especially if we are in certain scenario. Now, although we cannot control our emotions, we can actually manage how we can manifest our emotion. And the idea of managing our emotion is what we call emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. Basically, identifying your emotion and try to managing your own emotion. So, some emotion may have undesirable behavioral responses, but we can manage it so that hindi natin pagsisisihan what will be our action, no, our succeeding actions. Okay, now since I'm talking about emotional intelligence, I have here a documentary from YouTube, and I am recommending this documentary so that uh, you will have time. You will have time to watch and analyze and study and understand how you can improve your emotional intelligence. Now we're already done discussing the concept of emotion. Now let us start discussing the concept of feeling so that we can differentiate the two. What is feeling? This feeling is basically our emotional state or reaction. This is how we react based on our emotion. Okay, so if emotion is our reaction from our stimuli, okay, feelings is our reaction from our emotion. Feelings are the conscious experience. It is a self-inflicted experience for human beings. So ibig sabihin, feelings doesn't automatically triggers. Feelings are triggered manually by our mind, by our conscious mind. So, for example, if you are in a certain scenario, for example, in my example earlier, you heard a gunshot. What you feel at that very moment wherein you felt feared, you felt the need to run is actually an emotion because that is an automatic response on what you heard. But if the scenario passes and it happens for a very long time and you still are afraid of walking into that corner again because you are afraid that you might heard some gunshot again, that is not emotion anymore. That is feelings. You are now the one who is controlling on what you should be experience. And we call it feelings, not emotions. Okay? Because emotion, although it happens in a snap seconds, emotions come and go. It subsides abruptly. While feelings, as long as you are thinking of that feeling, as long as you are thinking that you need to be sad, as long as you are thinking that you need to be happy, as long as you are thinking you need to be angry, it will still exist in your mind. And that is feeling. Feeling is our conscious experience. Okay? Hence, can you look at someone's face and know what they're feeling? The answer is no. Okay? Because feeling, since it is a self-inflicted and conscious experience that we experience as human, we can hide our feelings. I can say to you right now that I am happy, but deep inside I am not. I can say to you that I am surprised because you're my because you attended our class, but deep inside I'm not. Because feelings can be hide. Okay? Now, what are the differences between emotions and feelings? So basically, emotions is our natural response, while feelings is our self-inflicted experience. Okay? Emotions do come and go, automatically come and automatically goes, while feelings, it manually come, depends on how you think, and it manually goes. Depends on how long you want to feel that feeling. That is why at some point there are some people uh, who have longer time and days in managing their emotions because they're choosing to feel what they want to feel, and that is what we call feelings. Okay, so now what is the connection of emotions and feelings to our moral decisions? Emotions or feelings do not actually have any roles with human act. When we say emotions or feelings, they do not control how we act as a person. What is human act? Human act is basically a human action that we perform knowingly, voluntarily, and freely. Now, emotions do not 100% control our human acts. But there are times that emotions, based on its behavioral response, clouded our rational thinking. But again, it subsides. Okay? So, what is the implication of this? It can never be used as an excuse for our negative actions. For if we allow our emotions to decide, then we are not acting as human beings. Okay? Emotion, yes, it can cloud our rational thinking, and then it can make us do things that are out of our conscious mind, such as diba, may mga connotation tayo, nagdilim ang paningin. Okay? So, if that person, nagdilim yung paningin niya, no, happens inside a particular situation, can be may reason it can be a reasonable instances, but if it happens outside that particular situation, that is not emotion, that is working anymore. So what is the example of this? For example, you are in a court. If we are in a court, no, what will happen is that you are charged with a case of murder. Why you are charged with a case of murder? Because this is what happened. You are walking along the street and you heard a loud gunshot, a loud sound, no, from a gunshot. Then you've noticed that the gun is pointing at you. And the guy or the man who triggered that gunshot is actually trying to kill you. Then out of nowhere, because you have a licensed gun, you shoot back and you incidentally killed that person. Are you liable for a criminal charge such as murder? The answer would be no. Because that is the initial response of your body based on your emotion that particular time. And you can say in the court that it is just a self-defense. Okay? However, what if you are in that street again and that man shooted you, then you manage to run, then after 3 hours or after, so let's say 1 week or a days, you manage to come back and kill that person. Are you liable for murder? The answer would be yes. Because what you did now is not because of your emotion. It happened because of your human act. You did it knowingly, you did it freely, and you did it voluntarily. Therefore, you are now liable to murder. And that is how emotions or feelings affects our moral decisions in life. That's why some people would say, some people would say to you that do not say yes if you are happy, and do not say no if you are angry. Because if you are in a certain emotional state, you are not that person. Okay? That's why if you are in an emotional state, in a certain emotional state, and you need to decide on your action or on your thought, relax yourself. Be calm. Okay, so that you will not be breaking any moral standard that is imposed by our society. Do not let your emotions control you or manage you. Manage your emotion. And that is why we are discussing it right now. We need to manage our emotion. We need to know what appropriate actions are the things that we need to do. Okay? When we are in certain emotional state. Okay? So don't decide if you're too much angry, happy, or sad. Now, since we are done and discussing what is the difference between emotions and feelings and how this affects our moral decisions in lives, another important thing that you need to understand is that we have human acts. Yes, emotions can cloud our rational thinking, but we have human acts. Human acts are our actions that we perform knowingly, freely, and voluntarily. So you cannot use your emotion or feeling as an excuse if you did something terrible. Because as person, what we did is what we call human act. We do it knowingly, freely, and voluntarily. So there are three nature on how there are natures no on how we can say that a certain action is based on human act, not emotion. The first one, we can say that what you did is a human act if you are fully aware of what you are doing. You know what you are doing. You're going to kill that person. You know what you are doing, and you know that killing it is something wrong, and yet you're doing it. You know what you are doing. Second, you have the freedom not to kill that person, but you killed him anyway. So that is human act. And the third one is that no one coerces you. There's no man pointing a gun towards you, telling you to do certain action. And that is what we call human act. Okay? So, again, balik tayo sa emotional intelligence. Manage your emotions when thinking, no? Or acting, no? Based on our moral standards. Okay, now for our last part for this discussion, we are going to talk about the ethics of love. Basically, what are the appropriate ways to love a person? Okay, since our subject is ethics and our topic for this week is about feelings and moral decisions, let us talk about how to appropriately apply love in our modern day scenario. So, to understand how to love ethically or appropriately, it is important, of course, that we know what is the concept of love. The concept of love is our intense feeling of deep affection to other people, other things, or other events. Take note, it is an intense feeling, not emotion. There's no love in six emotions or six types of emotions that I have discussed earlier. Love is a feeling. So that's why when you post something in Facebook, you can write in your status feeling love. because it is not an emotion. It is not a natural response of our mind. It is our self-inflicted experience. Therefore, it is a feeling. So love is our intense feeling of deep affection towards other people, towards things, and towards any event. Okay? So as a man, we can love another person, another thing, or another event, even if it does not render love in return. So basically, love is unidirectional. Love uh, is something that only us can experience. Okay? So when you love someone, you cannot expect automatically that that person will love you back immediately. Because love is not an emotion. It is not it is not like how emotion works, that when you see that someone is loving you, your mind will automatically tell your amygdala to, oh, love that person back. That is not love. And love is not an emotion. Therefore, if you love someone and you want that someone to love you back, you need to do things that will make him learn how to love you back. Because love is a feeling. And as a feeling, it can be learned. It can be inflicted upon us. Okay, so that is love. And now, love has its ethical aspects. Love is not just certain kind of certain concept that we do freely or what we want because this is a democratic country. No, love is something that should be appropriately imposed or appropriately work, no, or do as a person. So why do we need to ethically love? Why do we need to appropriate our love? Because according to Sigmund Freud, humans are naturally incest. What do we mean by incest? Incest is like loving your mother, father, sisters, and brothers romantically, loving them with physical and sexual intimacy. So according to Sigmund Freud, we are naturally incest because of Oedipus complex and Electra complex. But as we grow older, we tend to know what is right and what is wrong, or what is the moral standard about loving. Okay? And to do that, we need to know what are the moral appropriateness in loving. So, to know how to love appropriately and to avoid being an incest, it is important that we know what are the different kinds of love that we must possess. There are actually 3 different kinds of love. The first one is what we call as an eros. Eros is a kind of love that we give to our boyfriend, girlfriend, novio, novia, fiancé with physical and sexual intimacy. This is a kind of love that is very romantic for husband and wife. Okay? So the kind of love that you are giving to your other half, it's actually what we call as eros. It can be romantic. It can be with physical and sexual intimacy. Okay? But the other kind of love that you give to your friends and to your family, although it is the same level of love that you give to your other half, for example, if you give 100% of your love to your boyfriend or girlfriend, you also give 100% of your love to your friends and family. So they are the same level of love, but in this kind of love, there is no romantic, physical, and sexual intimacy. And we call this love as philia. Okay, so do not be confused on why we feel heartbroken when some of our friends left us. People do come and go. There are some friends who we considered as our most favorite friend, then all of a sudden that friend left us hanging. Then it felt like we're heartbroken. Is it because we love that friend romantically? No. It's because you love that friend so much that you call your love for him as philia. A kind of love that you give to your other half, but without sexual and physical intimacy. So it's normal that we feel heartbroken when our friends left us, especially our family. When our family betray us, our friends betray us, it's normal to be heartbroken because we also love them. And the kind of love that we give to them is philia. Okay, so do not be confused on this kind of love that we are giving to the important peoples in our life. And the third kind of love that we generally give to everybody is what we call as agape. This is the love of caring. This is caring for others. So agape is also commonly referred to as neighborly love or universal love. We love other people although we do not know them personally. We do not have personal relationship with them. It's because we see them as our brothers and sisters under the roof of church. We consider them as brothers and sisters because they are also Filipino. They are also Indian, they're also Korean, so on and so forth. That is the kind of love that we give to other people, and we call it agape. Example of agape is like in Typhoon Yolanda or Typhoon Haiyan, wherein Filipino people, although they do not know those people who are living in Tacloban, they gathered all donatable materials and they donate it to Tacloban as part of solidarity. Because we also love them, not as strong as Eros and Philia, but we love them as our neighbor, and we call it as agape. Okay, so these are the three kinds of love that we need to understand in order for us to love appropriately. Okay, so for loving your parents and your friends, it's not always loving with physical or sexual intimacy because there is a kind of love that we call the philia. So the next time that you will face or this next time that you will encounter being too attached to other people, you need to find out what kind of love are you giving to them so that you will not be immoral. You will not be immoral on what you are doing. And that is what we call the ethics of love. Okay, and with that, that ends our discussion for this week. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you will have a very nice day.